Welcome to the current trends section of our training. This is vaping specific. Like I said in the last video, we're really trying to keep this as up to date as possible. So this portion is being filmed in June of 2018. So when we talk about vaping today, we are talking about any kind of electronic vaporizer such as e-cigarettes, vapes, vape pens, vaporizers, and e-hookahs, just to clarify what is included in vaping. It's important to start off by just kind of seeing how the generations of vape pens have developed. Back in 2007, something called cig-alike e-cigarettes came on the market, and the goal with these was to actually decrease the use of cigarettes. It was supposed to be a healthier alternative for people that were trying to quit smoking. Unfortunately, research shows that there's no correlation between people using vape pens and decreasing their cigarette use. It actually, if anything, has shown that those that use electronic cigarettes are more likely to develop into using your regular traditional cigarettes over time, which is interesting. Eventually, they developed into a product that's more like an e-hookah pen, different variations, and these are rechargeable versions. And then vape pens came on the scene. They had a higher capacity because they could reach higher temperatures and their batteries lasted longer, and they had refillable liquid cartridges. So it allows you to use it more frequently. And then mods were developed, and these are an even larger size, and they contain more aerosol and more nicotine, more chemicals that can be breathed into your lungs. The different components of a vape pen are important to be aware of because you want to be looking for any of these devices that you might find around your kid's bedroom or maybe in their backpacks or something like that. So the battery is the energy source of the device, and it's what powers the atomizer. The atomizer is this coil-looking thing, and it's what's responsible for heating the e-liquid, and like I said, it's often coil-shaped. So something that has become more popular is called dripping, where students will drip the e-liquid, which I'm about to talk about, directly on the atomizer and just inhale that, and it's even more potent. When I reference e-liquid, this is what is called sometimes e-juice, and it's what's actually put into the device, and it's what contains the flavors and nicotine. It's really unfortunate because tobacco companies are saying that they're not trying to advertise to minors, but when you look at the different variations of e-juice that's available, like gummy bear, cotton candy, it's all things that are really appealing to kids, and I think it's pretty telling of who they are trying to advertise to. The cartridge is what actually holds the e-liquid, and it also usually has the atomizer inside. And then the aerosol is the e-liquid that's heated inside the device, and it comes out in aerosol form. And this is what's inhaled into the body and then exhaled out into the air. Juul pods are a really popular form of vaping device, and it's important to know that all Juul pods do contain nicotine, and they are equivalent to 1 pack of cigarettes. So you can see that the power source for Juul pod is actually rechargeable through a USB drive. And one of the issues with this is that students are keeping these in their backpacks, and parents are thinking that they're just USB drives that are being used to save assignments or pictures or something like that. So it's really important for parents to know the difference between a USB drive and a Juul pod. You can also see these pictures of the refillable pods. So a 4-pack of pods is equal to the cost of 1 pack of cigarettes. So this is really important to note that it is a cheaper alternative for students than cigarettes. So this is another reason why it's so appealing. A new product on the market is the Soren. So it's a different spelling and pronounced differently by different people, but it's a new product. It has a very sleek design, and you can see they have a couple different kind of models. And the thing with Sorens is that they have a longer charge. Another new product on the market is the Fix. You actually have to inhale it to activate it. So it's off unless it's put up to your lips and you're inhaling, and then it turns on. Again, there's 220 puffs for a full charge, which is the equivalent of 3 Juul pods. So this is another product that's giving students a longer period of use, like a longer charge, and it contains even more nicotine and even more chemicals. Something that parents can do to prevent their child from developing an addiction to the nicotine in vaping is to keep an eye out for the signs so that they can nip it in the bud. So obviously keeping an eye out for the unusual looking pens or flash drives, like I already mentioned. Nosebleeds are something that typically when a person vapes, they're exhaling the vapor through their nose. And so this can cause the inside of the nostrils to become really dried, and it can actually trigger random nosebleeds. And we also know that the chemical in the e-liquid, the main chemical, propylene glycol, is a dehydrating chemical, and this actually strips the moisture from inside of your nose. And so if you're noticing that your child is starting to have more nosebleeds, that might be one of the reasons that they could be experiencing this. We also know that bloody sores are something that can happen because the chemicals in the vapors are disrupting your immune system, and this can have a harsh effect on human cells. So if your student is complaining about sores in their mouth, or they start to show signs of an unexplained cough, this could be also a sign that your child is vaping. As far as increased thirst, like I mentioned before, the major ingredient in the vaporized liquid is propylene glycol, and it's something that actually attracts and holds water molecules from its environment, such as the mouth. So this can lead e-cigarette or vapors to have a constant state of dry mouth, and this is only alleviated by consuming large amounts of liquids. Dry skin is also something that we can see from this chemical. Sensitivity to caffeine is also something to be aware of. So a lot of students that are using vaporizers on a regular basis develop a sensitivity to caffeine, and so they end up curbing their caffeine intake. So if your teen is suddenly passing on things like Red Bulls that they used to chug all the time, this could be an indication that maybe they're using something else to get a buzz. And then lastly, an unexplained sweet smell. I mentioned that the e-cigarette, e-juice is a lot of the times like a sweet flavor that's modeled after some kind of candy or dessert. This is a really helpful video that we have linked into the HyperDoc along with the other supplementary videos that we really encourage you to watch, and it kind of breaks down the difference between smoking a traditional cigarette and vaping and what some of the risks associated are. There's a lot of concerns with vaping. So one of them is that it's getting easier and easier for students to be able to possess vape pens. One of the ways that we're finding students are doing this is by using Amazon. So students can go to the store, they can use money at places like Safeway to buy an Amazon gift card. They can then create an Amazon account and they can purchase vape pens online using an Amazon card. And then they can actually have it sent to an Amazon locker and they can go pick it up from the Amazon locker. So you're not able to track where they get it. We also know that they can buy vape pens from a lot of stores that are just directly selling their products on the internet. And a lot of the times they can be even using your credit card, and the vendor that pops up on your credit card is something that doesn't appear to be a vape pen, so it might be easily overlooked. We also know that students have been figuring out houses that are currently vacated or people that are rarely home, and they're having their packages of vape pens and supplies sent there, and then they go and pick it up from those porches. So those are just a few loopholes that students we found are using to get around the challenge of purchasing the vape paraphernalia. There's also something called vaporware. We encourage you to look this up online and check out some of their products, but they have a whole clothing line now, a variety of different clothing lines that specialize in making discreet vapewear. And so if you're looking at a traditional hoodie sweatshirt that has like the two strings that typically hang down, they've equipped these sweatshirts to have a way for students to vape through those hanging strings. So it looks like maybe they're just chewing on a string on their sweatshirt, but actually they can be vaping in class or vaping right in front of you at the dinner table, and you wouldn't necessarily know. Vaping is really concerning because it's not just water vapor. A lot of our students are under the impression that it is, and unfortunately, e-cigarettes are producing a water vapor aerosol that often contains other chemicals, like I mentioned earlier, and these chemicals are really harmful, and some of them are even known to cause cancer. We also know that nicotine itself is a highly addictive compound, and while not every vaping device contains nicotine, many of them have these chemicals and toxins within them, and there's no way for us to really know how much is in it. It's also easier to conceal the use of marijuana, THC liquids, and cocaine through vape pens. So we're having a really hard time when students get caught at school with a vape pen. We don't know what's actually in it. And then lastly, I like to make the point that e-juice is FDA approved for ingestion, but it's not approved for inhalation, and that is what is happening with a vape pen. Unfortunately, our kids are the guinea pigs for this product. Back when cigarettes were big, we didn't know as a society how harmful they were for years, and then later found out how harmful they are, and people started to actually quit. But at this point, our students, this generation, are the guinea pigs for this product. Third-hand smoke is another thing to be aware of. So when chemicals from vape pens remain on surfaces and dust even after vapor aerosol is gone, they react with other chemicals in the environment and they form even more toxic chemicals. Although, like I mentioned before, we don't know a ton yet about the secondhand smoke, there's plenty of evidence that already shows that third-hand smoke is harmful, especially to kids. And to end, I just want to share this final visual of some of the risks of e-cigarette and vape pen use. So we talked about the harms of nicotine before and the fact that in adolescent use, it causes changes in the brain that can make lifelong addiction a lot more likely. Ear, eye, and throat irritation is really common among e-cigarette and vape pen users. We know that the aerosols produced by the chemicals in e-juice actually enter into the user's lungs, and they're unfiltered, so they leave chemical residue behind. And we know that nicotine is known to have effects on the cardiovascular system. So some recent studies have shown that there's like the acute use of e-cigarettes actually impaired flow mediated dilation, and this leads us to believe that there could be a link to cardiovascular diseases. We also know that the use of e-cigarettes often cause further issues, including cancer and heart disease. And like I mentioned before, many people incorrectly believe that it's just water vapor, and they neglect to recognize the other chemicals that are present. So we hope that this video has been informative for you and something that you can use in having conversations with your students about the risks of e-cigarettes and vaping.